Hey, Joe to Nick here. I hope you're going to be able to get this, Nick. I've tried a couple of times and it's somehow gotten screwed up. Hey, Nick, you, it's kind of funny. Uh, you left a question on your YouTube because we were discussing, the reform stuff. And, uh, and I think no, I think on my I think on a personal message thing that you sent me, it said if this is the answer, you might as well go sailing. So it's kind of funny only because I had been away sailing. I had been away sailing over the past weekend for a few days. I had gone out for a few days, and so I kind of missed the conversation. And I have to admit that I ignored it when I got back because I'm doing a bunch of stuff, getting ready to go up to the American Monetary Institute conference. But the real question that you had posed, in which you asked me about, was that my answer? And if so, I should go sailing. The real question you had posed was, so then how does the government increase the money supply under the debt-free money system? Okay. And I want to try to answer that question, and I want to remind you again that noted, prominent economists, including a United States Senator economist who headed one of the Senate subcommittees on currency and credit, authored, the document, that 1939 document. So I don't know why you may think that like there's no way to do it, or that the way to do it is going to be silly or not well thought out or unworkable or something like that. When again, my approach is to take the scientific approach to how to do things. So how's the money going to be created? How's money going to be added? Let's compare it to how we do it now. First of all, why do we increase the money supply? So that we can have economic growth, right? So that we can have economic stability in a growing economy. Really. So you say, how do we do it now? Well, the mechanism that we have right now for increasing the money supply is the federal funds rate, managing the federal funds rate. Imagine we got that huge structure, and ultimately what they do is manage the federal funds rate. It's laughable. So then how do they how do they do it? They do it to target that there's going to be economic growth without inflation or deflation, and full employment, to whatever measure that we accept as what full employment means. So that's the same outcome, that modern monetary theorists, say, well, that's why the government needs to deficit spend, and the government does not need to issue debt to deficit spend. So on the one hand, you have those guys using it as a means of achieving public purpose goals, the goals being, full employment, and saying the government doesn't have to issue debt to do it because they're a sovereign authority. Okay, so you've got those guys, kind of like the smartest kids in the room group out there. But when I say something about it, for some reason it's like as if you even say, I don't understand it. I understand it. That's why we increase the money supply. That's how we increase the money supply now. We push on that federal funds rate. The overnight rate takes care of all the other borrowing rates, such that the amount of borrowing that takes place equals a certain increase in the money supply. And that's the amount that the economy grows by the way. Okay, so you can call it what you want, but the increase in the money supply equals the increase in the economy. So if it's $250 billion, and for the sake of this discussion, it's going to be $250 billion, get to that in a minute, then you have to push on that federal funds rate to get it to be $250 billion. Imagine. And they always say that, the problem with regulation is it's always chasing the last problem. Okay, now we're going to do this because that went bad. And now we're going to do this because that went bad. And that caused this to go bad, and we're going to do that. Totally true. Okay, totally true. Which is the problem with the regulatory approach. You can't regulate the money supply. Okay, you can manage it. You can't regulate it. So That's the system that we have now. And I want to contrast that now with the system that, you know, that Irving Fisher, you know, that Paul Douglas, you know, that all those guys, you know, when you read the resumes of those guys, you know, you realize that they do deserve some respect. But also that the American Monetary Institute is putting out, which has the money creation part of it, you know, spelled out in modern day terms. So I used the American Monetary Institute's proposal. I'm not going to point you in the direction of that again. You know, you can read it or not read it. The fact that you ask me how the money creation happens, to me that means you didn't read it. You know, you didn't read it, or you don't believe it. But it doesn't matter. The fact is that this is how it would be done. We have the 250 billion. Okay, you know, we have a 12.5 trillion dollar national economy. It's going to grow at 2%. That's been determined by the Monetary Authority, looking at all of the indicators of the potential growth in the economy that we want to provide money to enable. Growth in the economy. Enable growth in the economy by increasing the money supply. You see, there's the money supply, there's the economic growth. Okay, so that's the process. How the Monetary Authority does that, you know, we could debate that. You know, there's stuff in all the literature out there about how they would do it, but it doesn't matter. You know, for the purpose of this discussion, it's $250 billion. The economy is going to grow at 2%. That's all. Sometimes when I throw that $250 billion out on your side, I get people that tell me I'm crazy. And it's like, you know, well, what number do you think is the right number? If it's not 250 billion, you know, if the government is creating all the money, how could it not be that, you know, that you need 250 billion, minimally 250 billion? So we say there's $250 billion. That's the Monetary Authority's, you know, conclusion for the next fiscal year, and it goes out to the government. They're doing their budgeting. And for the purpose of this discussion, they have a one-page budget. Revenues and expenses, okay? Revenues and expenses. What's the revenues? The revenues is two parts. Taxation. No debt issuance. That used to be, there was taxation and debt issuance. No, it's not going to be that anymore. It's going to be taxation and those balances formerly known as deficits, which are increase in the nation's money supply. Okay? So they're going to use that 250 billion. So it's going to be, we have a $4 trillion government annual budget. It's nominal for the purpose of this discussion. Okay? 3.75 billion of that is going to be taxation. 250 billion is going to be the balance is formerly known as deficits. The expenditure side is going to be $4 trillion. We have a balanced budget, right? And you can't subtotal them and say exactly what's going to be funded by the 250 billion, and you should, because that's debt-free money that's going to go to, you know, the first user of that debt-free money is going to have some advantage of it. Okay, so you know the way the AMI proposal is laid out, a portion of that goes to the states. I say not a big enough portion because of the situation that we're in today, where the states are the ones that have suffered the most as a result of the failure of, you know, the private bankers to maintain our economy in a stable manner. The states have suffered the most, so the states are going to get a good share of the debt-free money created. What are they going to use it for? They're going to use it for whatever they decide they're going to use it for. You know, they're going to have their own, you know, governmental, you know, whether it's community and you know, municipality and, you know, whatever, and the state itself primarily, you know, to determine what it's going to be. And I'm going to say out of the 250, 100 billion of it's going to go to the states. So there it is. It goes to the states. All the government's going to do at that point over the course of that full 12 months of the next year is to put that money out into the economy. Okay? You know, by nature, it's going to go to everywhere. It's going to go to all the states. So it's going to be much more democratic than the system that we have now, where it stays in Washington and New York. You know, it's going to be much more democratic. It's going to get out there into Kansas City. It's going to get out there into San Antonio and, you know, in various places. So that's how it's going to work, Nick. It'll be paid into existence, just like that. We're going to do it year after year after year after year. No reason why we can't do that. And, you know, if you think there's any reason, why don't you give me a video reply? You know, or why don't you point my video in the direction of somebody who's going to give me a video reply? so that we can kind of establish an ongoing dialogue about money, Nick, that builds upon understanding. I'm trying to foment the understanding that you say you don't think I have because I don't explain it. If I understood it, I'd explain it. So here it is. Thanks, Nick.